I'm gonna be honest, I don't think this video is gonna be monetized. With how strict YouTube's new policy is, oh, there's no way. But I'm no quitter. I will do my best to use safe for work metaphors and stand-ins to keep this video as clean as possible. YouTube, please spare me. Jonathan Joestar. Jonathan Joestar was born into a wealthy Victorian-era English family. Now, if that isn't a recipe for circumcision, I don't know what is. Circumcision began in England during the 1850s, meaning Jonathan would have been among one of the first generation of circumcised Englishmen. Now take a look at this dude. Does this guy radiate foreskin energy to you? No, he's too proper, too rich to share the same genitals as the peasant class. Dio, on the other hand, you think Dario is willing to shill out some extra coin to circumcise his baby? Jonathan Joestar, circumcised. Joseph Joestar. Joseph Joestar was a true red-blooded American boy born in 1920. If we're judging based on his personality, he definitely radiates wildcard energy. You don't know what you're gonna find pulling down his pants. By this time in US history, circumcision has already been in full swing, meaning it's most likely that Joseph would have been circumcised. Unfortunately though, the solution is not that simple, and that is because of one Lisa. Lisa, Joseph Joestar's mother, is the 19th century version of modern day astrology vegan white girls. It was probably Lisa alone who kickstarted the 1970s hippie movement. Do you think a woman like her would circumcise her baby boy? But what if it wasn't up to her? In the 1920s, women's rights weren't anywhere near the level they are today. George Joestar II was Joseph's World War I fighter pilot father. Considering how all men of the Joestar bloodline just do not know how to raise a child, he probably wasn't even present for Joseph's birth. George probably arrived to the hospital late after Joseph was already born. When the doctor told him his wife chose not to circumcise his baby boy, he probably yelled, "Hell no, not my son!" And then he told the doctor to circumcise the baby, overriding Lisa's decision. Now, considering all that is so probable, so in character for everyone, I'm basically treating this as canon. Joseph Joestar, circumcised. Jotaro Kujo! For the first time, we have a JoJo protagonist born in a country that doesn't typically practice circumcision. Jotaro Kujo was born in 1970 Japan. The odds of Jotaro being circumcised are slim to nil. However, there is a chance, a slight chance he was circumcised, and that chance is named Holly Cujoh. Holly was a white, red-blooded American gal who moved to Japan, married, and then had Jotaro. Maybe, if Holly was a turbo circumcision advocate, it's possible she could have demanded that her only son would be circumcised. But considering she married a local Japanese man who statistically probably wasn't circumcised, this is unlikely. But the most damning evidence against Jotaro's circumcision is actually in his name. If Holly gave Jotaro a traditional American name, that might have meant she would have wanted him to keep a link to his American heritage. And what better way to keep a memento of your American lineage is to cut off the foreskin gland of your genitals. However, since we know that Jotaro was instead given a traditional Japanese name, it's likely he would follow Japanese traditions instead of American ones. Jotaro Kujo, uncircumcised. Josuke Higashikata. We again have another Japanese protagonist, meaning yet again, it's very unlikely Josuke was circumcised. Maybe. You see, Joseph Joestar was circumcised, and Josuke Higashikata is the... Oh, I can't say that word. Josuke is the out-of-wedlock child of an affair Joseph Joestar had while in Japan. Joseph didn't even know Josuke existed until he was already practically grown up. Therefore, Josuke's circumcision was entirely decided by his mother, Tomoko. Sounds pretty straightforward, considering Tomoko's Japanese. It's unlikely... Wait. Even after a decade of not seeing, hearing, or having any kind of contact whatsoever with Joseph, Tomoko still hung on to her love for him. Kinda sad, considering Joseph probably doesn't even remember her. She was even waiting 16 years for Joseph to return. If the man she loves that much after 16 years without contact, the man who gave her her only son, who she even named after Joseph, giving him the same JoJo nickname, if that man was circumcised, which we now know was, then I think it's entirely possible that out of either love or respect for Joseph, she decided to have her own son circumcised in his honor. Now, what are the odds this was the case? Josuke Higashikata, uncircumcised. Giorno Giovanna. Now here we have an interesting JoJo to discuss. If Giorno was circumcised, he could just use golden experience to create new foreskin and uncircumcise himself. Giorno's mother was Italian, and his father was absent. Catholic Italians don't typically circumcise. Therefore, I think it was very likely Giorno was not circumcised. And again, even if he was circumcised, he has the unique ability to uncircumcise himself again. Giorno Giovanna. You will never reach the circumcision. Jolyne Cujoh. So, not so fun fact, female circumcision does exist, but not in the USA or Japan. And not only is female circumcision not common in these places, it actually has a very negative connotation. Therefore, I am very, 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 very confident that Jolyne is uncircumcised, and the Moonlight Bars thing only proves my point. Jolyne Cujoh, 100% uncircumcised. Johnny Joestar. You're kidding me.
Are you crazy?
Out of your mind? Out of everyone on this list, Johnny Joestar is 100% circumcised. There is no doubt in my mind. Circumcision began in the USA during the late 1800s. Now take a look at Johnny's father. This dude was obsessed with status. He is the type of person to berate his little son for being improper at the dinner table. Not that I'm advocating for bad manners, but like, come on.
Drown the mouse, boy.
This man who wouldn't accept anything except his sons being absolutely perfect, 100% circumcised both of his children. He would have seen the foreskin itself as improper and embarrassing. If he wouldn't let his son keep his pet mouse, there's no way he'd let his son keep his foreskin. Johnny Joestar, without a doubt, circumcised. Josuke Higashikata 8. Spoiler. Massive spoiler warning for part 8, Jolyne. Click off the video now if you haven't read it yet. Actually, wait. I do want those watch hours. Okay, just mute the video, but leave it on. You know what? Put the video on loop while you're at it. And then go touch grass for watching this video. Here we have an interesting case. Probably the most interesting case of all the JoJo protagonists. For the first time ever, we have canon information about a JoJo protagonist's genitals. According to Miss Hirose, Josuke has 1 Slim Jim, but 4 golf balls. He has 2 sets of 2 golf balls, which is funny in itself, but the confirmation that Josuke only has 1 Slim Jim is big. Due to the properties of the new Lokakuka, whether Josuke is circumcised or not depends on 2 key variables. Variable A, whether or not Yoshikage Kira is circumcised, and variable B, whether or not Josefumi is circumcised. Here, to make this more simple, I came up with a Carnot map to document my findings. Well, bam! Here it is. Here you can see the 4 possible solutions to Josuke's circumcision. First thing you'll notice is there's only 1 situation in which Josuke is circumcised, and that is if both Josefumi Kujo and Yoshikage Kira are already circumcised. If either one of them are circumcised but the other one isn't, then the equivalent exchange of the new Lokakuka would have mended the circumcision with the available foreskin. I hope I'm making sense. It's hard to articulate this. Remember, Josuke's entire body used the available parts from only Yoshikage Kira and Josefumi Kujo, and only them alone. Therefore, if both of them had their foreskin, then there would be no circumcised cucumber for Josuke to have. If one of them were circumcised and the other wasn't, then the foreskin, which is naturally a part of the human body, would override the circumcised banana, mending it the same way the new Lokakuka mends any wounds. The only way Josuke Higashikata would be circumcised is if neither Josefumi or Yoshikage had foreskin, because that way there would be no foreskin for the new Lokakuka to grab, thus leaving Josuke's banana peeled. So, are Yoshikage and Josefumi circumcised? No way. As I've said before, Japan doesn't normally practice circumcision. The odds of both of these unrelated Japanese families would both circumcise their baby boys is too low. And even if, for whatever reason, one of them were circumcised, it would still lead to Josuke being uncircumcised. Therefore, Josuke Higashikata 8. Uncircumcised! Well, I did it. I figured out whether or not every JoJo protagonist is circumcised or uncircumcised. Why did I do it? I don't know. YouTube, please don't demonetize me. If you've watched this all the way to the end, consider subscribing before you go. Now, I must go touch some snow. Okay, bye.